And welcome to CityWorks, a production of the City University of New York School of Labor and Urban Studies and CUNY TV. I'm Laura Flanders. Every month, this program examines a topic central to the lives of working people on the job, in the home, in New York, and in the greater urban landscape. This time, we're going to be hearing from disabled workers. While some of us have recently, thanks to COVID-19, had the experience of living with all sorts of restrictions on our lives, including working from home, many disabled people have been carrying out their jobs at home for years, predating the pandemic. My experience is anything to go by. They are the best life hackers I know. They're the experts, so what can the rest of us learn? Joining me are three outstanding people from this field. Dara Baldwin is Director of National Policy at the Center for Disability Rights, or CDR, a not-for-profit, community-based advocacy and service organization for people with all sorts of disabilities. Sarah F. Rose is a professor at the University of Texas at Arlington, where she directs the university's Minor in Disability Studies, and she's also the author of No Right to Be Idle, The Invention of Disability, which has received, among other awards, the Philip Taft Prize in Labor and Working Class History and the Disability History Association Outstanding Book Award. Also with us, Adjilsa Fernandez, a mental health and disability advocate and activist. Currently, Adjilsa is Advocacy and Policy Senior at the Independence Center of Northern Virginia. And she's a member of the Sylvia Rivera Law Project's shelter organizing team, among other things. Adjilsa, everybody else, thank you so much for joining me. But I do think it's helpful to root ourselves in history. And Sarah, I was intrigued by the title of your book. Can you talk about what we think of as disability today and how that concept hasn't always been with us?
So, yeah, thank you. It's a great question. I would say that really around 1900, 1920, there's a huge change in policy that shapes what we think of people as disabilities live and what possibilities they have for work and really to be recognized and paid for work. And basically, people with disabilities have always worked, but there's a real shift how employers and lawmakers think of disabled people.
So you said the 1920s. So we're talking a concept that's been around for barely 100 years.
Yes,
Before that?
the idea that people with disabilities are unproductive and they're unproductive citizens. So there's a civic element. They're bad citizens, basically, because they aren't productive.
And what were they doing before?
Well, actually, the whole time they were working. They were working in asylums. They were caring for family members. They were working in factories. They were self-employed, but it becomes much harder for them to find paid work on the mainstream labor market because of a nexus of changes in really the 1910s and 20s, but kind of also changes in family structure and where people work.
So really a function of industrialization, capitalization. We'll move on, but this is fascinating to me.
Yeah, industrialization, urbanization, also the shift from extended families, because if you have a farm family or you're an artisanal laborer and you're working largely at home, it's easy to fit in people who produce in different ways. And the thing is really disability, as we know it, the idea that someone is disabled from work, that's really what emerges right around World War I. But it didn't really matter whether someone was, say, elderly or maybe a child, because children worked in the 19th century. It was where people moved in and out of productivity. And then there's a shift to sort of black and white. People are either productive or they're not.
Thank you for that. Well, with that grounding, Dara, to you, let's talk about work and payment and disability, so-called, in our economy right now. We talk a lot about sub-minimum wages. And when a lot of people think about that, they think about tipped workers, because we've heard that phrase, the tipped wage. But there's another, even more sub-wage. Talk about that, if you would.
So employment for disabled people has been sub-minimum wage is 14C of the FLSA, which is the Fair Labor Standard Act, back in the 1930s when Sarah was talking about it. And what they said was that people with disabilities could do work, but we're not going to pay them even a minimum wage. We're going to pay them sub-minimum wage. And many people probably, young people at CUNY, you don't remember this, but us seasoned folks, people used to do piecemeal work. You used to get Sears and Roebuck's catalog, how they wrapped it and they put it in a piece of paper or sent it, or you stuffed envelopes. When we used to mail letters to Congress, we didn't have email. You actually folded it and put it in an envelope and mailed it. Or even now, Goodwill, places like Goodwill use this service. So what it means is that from the Department of Labor, a company can get a certificate to provide sub-minimum wage labor, which means that the people work for sub-minimum wage. We have people who actually work for 2 cents a day. We have some people who work 40 hours a week and will get a check for $14. And the reason this is done is that people, when they were disabled, we would get them out of facilities, get them out of institutions. That's our number one goal. They had no place to go, people said, right? They had no education. So what kind of jobs can they do? Well, they can do this. And they're subhuman. They're not even considered to be human. So why do we have to pay them the same amount? And so, we joined together with tip workers, but they used to go around and say food workers were the lowest paid people in the country. And I would be like, no, they're not. Disabled people get paid less than them legally, as long as this company has this certificate, which the DOL finally has a database to tell us who has these certificates around the country, and they still have them in place. Now, one thing is clear, the work we've done, they've stopped issuing those certificates, right?
Jilsa, coming to you on this, hearing all of this, bringing us into this moment, where are the front lines of the fight that you're engaged in, Jilsa?
Well, when it comes to work accommodations, we're addressing it now because we've seen a shift with COVID. For so long, people with disabilities have been asking for accommodations, working from home, having longer breaks, being able to communicate differently through audios or writings or so forth. And we saw that shift during COVID. But one of the things we're seeing is as people are re-engaging back to work, we're seeing the workforce go back to pre-COVID and ignore these accommodations, ignore what has been working. So our work mainly now is focusing on addressing the lack of accommodations as we return back to work. And why? If this worked during COVID, why are we taking it away?
So talk about accommodations. When you say that word, there may be people that think, oh, let's just make sure the door is 36 inches wide. Let's make sure that there is a ramp outside. What do you mean?
It's more than just the physical aspects of buildings. Is being able to, for example, get materials in audio, writing, and visual, right? Visual meaning like PDF files or documents, or being able to have a longer break. It really depends on the person and the disability. Sometimes that means just having more control of your schedule. So just being able to work, but at your capabilities, at the way that your brain or your body works, particularly for yourself. That's Sarah, what I mean by accommodations.
Sarah, you actually issued or produced an entire sort of guide around some of these things. Can you talk about this, like what it means to create an inclusive curriculum? When I've gone to some of your websites, and it's clear that you have consciousness that I don't necessarily have.
Access to education is a huge stepping stone for access to work for all kinds of citizenship status and social status. And I'd say, in classrooms, really what I've seen in my own teaching, what we see in the disability studies minor, is that disability is a creative generative force. The accommodations that Joseph was talking about, they're really important, but they're also often helpful for lots of other people, and sort of thinking not, say, as employers in the early 20th century and really today, that you need an interchangeable worker with identical bodies, but actually that workers do much better when they have flexibility, when they have control, when they have input into how, say, a production line is working. And that disability, navigating a world that isn't adapted for you, is a creative experience in a lot of ways.
Well, I want to hear maybe some examples of what you mean, because there are many. And I have to say, I think about this moment when many employers are saying, we don't have enough workers. They blame too generous unemployment benefits. And I think a lot of people push back and say, no, wait a minute, we're just not quite ready to go back to working in the conditions and for the wages that we did before. We were expecting change. But give us an example. I mean, Dara, do you want to give us an example of how disability has been a creative, generative force?
Sure. So let's talk about closed captioning. Closed captioning became a product of information. You could be in a bar, and a bar will have 16 different TVs, and let's just talk about you at the same time, on a Sunday evening, you could watch Real Housewives of whatever, because they're on. You could watch 60 Minutes because it's doing its thing. You could watch the NFL football, and you could have a band playing because you had closed captioning going across the screen. Although that was set up for deaf people to use at work and on computer screens, it became something that is very social. People really enjoy that and need that or want it in loud places. If you're in an airport and you really want to watch CNN because something's happening, you can read what's going on the screen. So assisted life. So we call it universal, right? Like if you make something that's universally designed, everyone will use it, right? They will use it in their work and their job. And when we talk reasonable accommodations, are the accommodations that are needed to do even a chair, ergonomic chair to sit straight and sit right. There are some people who have what's called episodic disabilities. If you had cancer, you're not cured from cancer. It's still with you, but you're in remission, especially breast cancer survivors, and they needed seats to sit well. Well, then ergonomic seating became a really big thing. Like, oh, wait a minute, she's sitting up straight and her back's not hurting. Or even now, people who stand at desks, they learn that from disabled people. The last one I'll give you is also, again, a lot of deaf people. A lot of the products that we use today in our hands, our telephones, came from working with disabled people about communications, specifically deaf, but more other people. You have texting because of deaf people.
So people are getting the idea that is a long list. Let's move to what is needed right now and what is actually in the works at the level of federal and local government. Jilsa, to you. Dara talked about some of the generative creativity that has come out of the experience of people with disabilities. More people today have disabilities than did before COVID-19, thanks to long-haul COVID and other things. So, I mean, to be frank, all of us, if we live long enough, will have the chance to be disabled, if we're lucky. Talk about what are some of the challenges that people with maybe long-term COVID are facing right now, or what some of the challenges you see in your work as people deal with the mental ramifications of what we've all been through.
Absolutely. Several things here. So one, in the realms of the people who are having long haul COVID, right now, it's not considered a disability. So they can't file for SSI. They can't file for disability paperwork in their jobs. So if they're having problems going up the stairs or walking, or what's something that's common, it's brain fog, they can't take a break. And many times there's barriers in the workforce where the job or HR is asking for a letter from the doctor, but it specifically has to address disability. But since we don't know enough about COVID and it doesn't fall under the category of disability yet, it's such a barrier for people to get the accommodations that they need. And then in the realm of mental health, oh, wow. I work as a peer specialist, mental health peer specialist, and the crisis that exists. I keep hearing from hospitals, psych units, and outpatients, mental health units saying, we can't even take people anymore. The wait list is over a year now. Many of these people have lost so many family members, back to back to back to back. The grief is overwhelming. And yet the expectation is, we got to go back to work.
Yeah.
We just got to keep it moving. We got to produce. That in itself causes disability. It's the grief, PTSD, depression, suicide ideation, you name it. There's a lot of cause of mental health distress there.
And the issue that you raised, Dara, near the beginning about independent living versus institutionalization. While there are some great institutions that work well for some people, there needs to be choice here. Is there choice for people recovering COVID? And what issues are you trying to raise around this question of independent living and nursing homes that have not, in many places, been the perfect or ideal or even close to ideal place to be if you're worried about your health?
The process and how people are treated and handled in institutions has never been come to full light because there is no accountability. There is no oversight. We have a bill called the Disability Integration Act, which is to get people out. The Olmstead v. Lois Curtis case, let us not forget Lois Curtis' name, Black woman, says you cannot institutionalize people without their permission. And in this country, we don't have the resources to get them out.
Now, while we're talking institutions, I mean, the university is an institution, a hospital is an institution, some homes haven't got a lot of transparency, a rehab center is an institution. Is there a specific kind of institution you're talking about?
All congregate settings of institutions, not universities, of course not, where you hold people against their will, right? Which is a lot of places.
I think that's
mental health institutions, prisons, jails, juvenile justice, where there's a congregate setting where there's a lot of people and there's no LRE, least restrictive environment, which means even group homes. People don't understand. People go to a group home and the person who runs the home says everybody has to go to church today. You don't do that to people. They lock the refrigerator. You only get to eat when I say you eat. You can't have people come over. You can't have a relationship with anyone. You're not allowed to socialize. You socialize with the people I want you to socialize. So any institution that is not providing someone with their civil and human right and LRE, least restrictive environments, we are against. And that's most of the institutions in this country. So you're right? Thank you for bringing that out. But COVID has shown it's also dangerous for people, right? Not only the people who are there as, patients or there, but the staff. The PPE that was given out to, and don't get me wrong, I love first responders and I love the hospitals and acute care. They did not consider those people acute care. So when the cures money came, it did not cover PPE for people who worked in institutions, for doctors and nurses and people who were doing the same work at these nursing homes, at these prison centers. This country is not doing right by those personal assistants, those clinicians, those directors of those facilities.
Talk a bit about policy change that you're both advocating for, concerned about, that you expected, that's coming, that's not coming. Sarah, do you want to start this ball rolling?
What I would say is that so often, disability policy has been made really around fear of dependency, and poverty is not actually talked about that much. There's a really close association between having a disability and being in poverty, and often our policies work to keep disabled people in poverty because of this idea that I talked about in my book, that it's more important that, say, Goodwill Industries early on, and today in many ways, that it's more important that someone work, whether they're paid 2 cents or in what were called idiot asylums, and that we still have in Texas, state-supported living centers, that the idea was that they weren't paid at all because they were paying back part of the cost of their confinement. And so their work just wasn't even recognized because of their body, that their body was deemed not really compensable, you could say. So I think one of the really big problems is that when disability policy gets made, it gets made about other things, about ideas about who's having work accidents in families that are dependent, or about trying to prevent veterans from, oh, they shouldn't need a pension. We should get them all back to work because that's morally good. And so a lot of the roots of our disability policy lie in this fear of dependence rather than actually making policy about disability.
Dara, it's the CARES Act. There's the Relief Act. Talk about what legislation is actually actionable right now, because we have a lot of powerful union folks listening and maybe they can take action.
Yes, right now you have S53, which is the Raise the Wage Act, which we were talking about, which is introduced by Senator Bernie Sanders, Democrat from Vermont. It passed in the House in February. We're waiting for it to pass in the Senate. We can't get anything done in the Senate. And what the Raise the Wage Act is, as we were saying before, you see my pink sign says vote, that's one fair wage, working to increase the tip workers. We created a coalition of one fair wage, exactly what Joseph was saying, to raise tip workers, to raise that sub-minimum wage. I was gonna say before, not only disabled people, but people who are incarcerated make even less than disabled people, right? So people who are incarcerated need to be making minimum wage and livable wages. And so that's what Raise the Wage would do. It is installed. We need it to pass. We try to do it through the budget resolution. Couldn't do that. We might be able to do it through this next budget resolution. Let's see.
Sarah, I'm going to give you the last word. You started us with a sense of history, looking back to how we got here. Dara helped. There's a future scenario that we were just beginning to talk about related to our economy and productivity when COVID hit. I'm imagining that conversation is going to pick up now as we think about a future that we were anticipating then of automation and mechanization, mostly digital at this point, globalization. If we cling as a culture and as a society to our traditional notions of productivity and idleness, as in the title of your book, it's not just people with disabilities that are going to be feeling it. It's not just people with disabilities who are going to be deemed non-productive or idle. I know you're a historian, but looking forward, what's at stake right now for all of us if we don't get it, that the disability justice movement just might be about the collective liberation of everybody, and we perhaps should listen up?
So I would say that, we've begun to untie the links between health insurance and employment, but really we need national health insurance. And that is huge in separating the idea that someone needs to work a certain amount of hours, a certain way, make a certain amount of money to be able to have the basis of a quality life. And I think also addressing access to mental health care. I mean, in Texas and lots of other places in the country, I would imagine New York as well, and Virginia, the county jails are the largest mental health facilities. That's where you go if you need care and can't get it. And people cycle in and out. And we also know there's like 50% of the Black people killed by police have disabilities. Numbers are, from what I've heard, even higher for Indigenous people. So sort of breaking some of those connections so that people actually have access to care, and I think incorporating chronic illness and really what people with chronic illness, people with psychosocial disabilities, their critiques, and saying, here's what works. Because what we can see also is historically, disabled people make great employees. In the sense, Henry Ford, who is a really complex guy, but he was using disabled people to stop turnover, huge labor turnover. But over and over, people have shown that if you actually are flexible, people will stay. They have lots of insights about how work is done, because we all have to navigate working with disabilities. So I think, I really would hate for us to lose all the flexibility that we've gotten. And I'm seeing the same trends of really strict agreements about being able to work from home, and that are really disheartening. And it feels like we learned a lot, and then we're kind of about to maybe forget it all.
Ajilsa, I actually want to end with you because I think it's so important that we don't return to this pre-COVID normal that was not good as far as I can see for anybody. And I know that you agree.
Absolutely. And just as as Sarah was saying, we can't go back. We can't go back. We noticed that working remote, having flexible hours, having other accommodations during the time of COVID has worked. A lot of research came out that employees were happier, more productive. It worked, as Dara was saying prior, it's a universal design. Even though it took into consideration people with disabilities and COVID, it really helped everybody. Everybody, it's a universal design. So to go back as if this didn't happen and it didn't work, I don't know, it's something, it's not just I'm having a hard time, but our society as a whole is having a hard time understanding why anyone will want to go back to something that was unsuccessful.
All right. Thank you both. I mean, all of you, I really have appreciated this conversation. You've opened up a lot of ears and eyes and thoughts and minds. So thank you so much. Dara Baldwin, Agilsa Fernandez, Sarah Rose. I'm Laura Flanders for CityWorks. Thanks for joining me.